I think all of you know Stuart. Stuart needs no introduction. Doesn't? No. What we're going to do today, if you think you're coming to hear a nice, done, dusted, all signed and sealed vision, then you're not going to hear that. What you're going to hear today is the beginning of a vision, something which we need everybody to be aware of and part of. About 2 weeks ago, I was meeting with other Woking ministers at a Costa Coffee, which we have never done before, but it was because we were having to prepare some input for something else. And afterwards, we felt having a conversation. And it wasn't me that started the conversation, but one of the ministers said, I'm going to have to go and see the Bishop of Guildford. I've got an appointment. I'm like, I've got an appointment to go to the Bishop of Guildford. He said, I need to go and ask his help, his advice. I have a question to ask him. Oh, what's that? Well, I need to go and talk to him because what we did 5 years ago doesn't work anymore. And the conversation that followed, in which we participated too, Julie and myself, said the same thing. So much of what we did even 5 years ago doesn't work anymore. Things are moving so fast. So I want you to know what Stuart's going to talk about today and what he brought to us as PCC back in June is not just what Stuart woke up for and had something bad for breakfast. It's not that. It's actually verified by other churches around here and right across the nation that what we're dealing with now is a really big change. And it means that the way we see what we're doing and how we do it has to change as well. It was really good that Stuart came and talked to BCC back in May. We had a really good time. We talked, but then we listened to what he said and we thought about its impact upon our buildings. And it had quite an interesting conversation that came from that about the kind of impact this could make upon that aspect. And we'll talk more about that. But we felt very much that as PCC is beginning to do this process, that it was important for the whole church to hear what we're working with, because we're going to be in this together. Or to be precise, with my departure, you're going to be in this together. And my successor is going to be key to helping you take that process forward. And there's one reason I need to get out of the way so that can happen, because what's coming will take time, 10, 15 years or so, but it's coming. And so I want to just pray for Stuart now and let him talk to you, and then I'll say a few more things afterwards as well. But let's pray. Lord, we thank you that nothing ever surprises you. Thank you, Lord, that you're ahead of us and you've fallen to step alongside us to transform our thinking. And we want to be like those people on the Emmaus Road as Jesus drew alongside. And as they shared what was on their heart, he transformed their understanding of it. And they were left rejoicing in a different state of mind. Lord, I pray that you would open our hearts to hear what Stuart says. But I want to pray, Lord, that you open our hearts to hear what the Spirit says to us, Lord. What Stuart and I say may not all be of you. We want to pray that only that which is of you will touch our hearts and minds, that each one of us will receive something, because together we will make up the picture and the understanding. And we ask that those who are not here will be able to look at the video and listen to the recording, and so there'll be a really good understanding of where we are at this point and beginning to understand where you may be calling us to go. Lord, we just bring these things before you and ask that you would fill this place with your Holy Spirit. You would guard us from false understandings, that you would hold us in the palm of your hand, and that as we listen, we may truly discern your voice in all that we hear. And I was praying now for Stuart that you would bless him, you would anoint him, and you would help him to speak with a clarity that allows you to have a precise effect upon us. In the name and the power of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Nick. I want to start by simply saying this. That is me talking to you now, came about entirely as a result of Nick inviting me to have a cup of coffee at Valentino's. Now the message is, if you don't want to come and talk to the church, don't have coffee with him at Valentino's. And what actually happened was, following that meeting with Nick over the coffee, he said, come and talk to PCC, which I did, and I talked to PCC actually twice, And at the end of it, PCC was very generous to me in saying that they thought that what I'd done was of value, and that is the reason why I'm standing here now, because the feeling is that what I said would be of great benefit to the church as a whole and to you, part of the vision process. So, I addressed PCC. Nick has asked me to present this to the church to continue the work of developing a vision and with the hope that we will transform the church. And I said this to PCC twice, and I'm saying it to you now, that none of what I'm going to say today is intended as a criticism of any individual, what the church has done, or anything else. So if at any point you're going, ooh, I don't know what I'll be saying, shouldn't be saying it this way, I am not intending to criticise anybody. And I just want to put that on record so that you know where my heart is and what I'm trying to do. What I want to start by doing is taking the really big picture, and that is to talk about, if you like, the church in this country. And some of us have been members of the church for a considerable length of time. Joy and I have been in this church for 31 years, thank you, John. 31 years. And in that time, a lot has happened. Now, if you look at all the statistics about church in this country, we have had a history of decline over the last 30 years. And if I can quote, apparently there are just 800,000 worshippers who attend a Church of England service on an average Sunday. The numbers in the pews have fallen to less than half the levels of the 1960s, and the census evidence shows a widespread fall in allegiance to Christianity. Now, that was taken from a recent Daily Mail report. Now, the numbers may not be correct, but I think the trend is probably one that we are able to associate with. And one of the implications, I think, of that is that maybe at some point in the future, we really won't be a Christian country at all. So in other words, there will be less Christians maybe than Muslims perhaps, with lots more Muslims coming into this country, and that our influence as Christians in terms of the law, in terms of the country as a whole, will diminish. And the question that I asked the BCC was, does that matter? Is that important? Are you bothered by it? And can we do anything about it? And what I talked to BCC about was I have professionally contact with quite a large number of churches, and what I observe and what I've seen and read is that you can classify churches into three categories, and this is a little oversimplistic, and I agree with that, but it's quite a helpful way of looking at it. There are some churches in this country that are growing at a really fast rate. They're going really well, and they are attracting both Christians and non-Christians. There are a significant number of churches that are static, where they're exactly the same in terms of size and what they're doing as they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And then we have a third category, what I've called declining. And there are a significant number of churches that are in what I'm called a death mode, where they probably will close in the next 10 years, and their people will move on to another church. And what sustains quite a few churches is people moving from another church to make the numbers up. And the question I want to ask is, are we bucking the trend here? What sort of church are we? So, are we growing, are we static, or are we in decline? And I'm not going to answer that. I'll leave that for you to think about. and maybe discuss later. And the reason why there is an issue today with this is because we don't have enough new Christians. People aren't leaving church. They're not suddenly going, I'm no longer a Christian. Christians are really loyal to their churches. They hang around because they generally have come to faith in Jesus Christ. They continue on the journey, which is brilliant. What happens, of course, is that Christians get old and they're able to do less, and then they die. And for many churches, what's happening is there's simply not enough new Christians to cover those that are dying. And in some churches, what they make up with is what I call movers. And these are people who come from another church and come and join. And what that does is it creates the illusion that somehow, we're okay and it's going to be fine because the numbers are the same and we continue to do the things we can. Now, the problem is, if you have a mover come in, the kingdom of God hasn't increased. The person who comes here joins us and gives us more people. The church they left gives them less people. So we've not seen God's kingdom grow at all. And statistically, that is, if you want to look at this in terms of numbers, I have this theory called the average age theory, and it works like this. If we do absolutely nothing, the average age of the people in the church will go up by 1 year every year. And so, in the end, we'll all be 80. Because nothing's changed. So, in order to even stand still, we actually have to see new growth. We have to see new people come to Christ. And so, evangelism, and what we do with that is really important. And that won't be new to you, but what Nick was saying was that there's a recognition the way we do it today is not working. I think that's what was being said. And I asked myself this question. Those people who don't come to church, what do they think about us? And I've talked to one or two people, and it's not that they don't like us or that we're no good, it's just that we're irrelevant. And it's almost as if we have people come to the hall, to our halls, and they do judo, they do Weight Watchers, they do all these sort of things. And people think we're a spiritual version of judo. Another club or organisation you can join. And if, you can take it or leave it. It's a sort of choice as to whether you come along or not. And, I think sometimes the way we behave encourages that view. Because today, choice is king. So everybody wants to have a choice. And, it's different. It was different 30 years ago. People came to church out of a discipline. They chose to come. And the two fundamental stones, if you like, of Christian life, prayer and reading the Bible. All the evidence is that Christians are doing this less. And it's a challenge to us, because we know that reading the Bible and praying is really important. And Nick, bless him, has told us this on numerous occasions. And I think, it's an interesting thing, you talk to people about us being Christians, and they describe us as being nice, you see. So a lot of us don't want to offend. So we find it very difficult to say, actually, we need to challenge you. You need to become a Christian. So there's a challenge in there. The gospel brings with it a challenge. And what the church has done is retreated from that. And we find it very difficult to actually be in a position where we're prepared to say, no, maybe it's just me. Actually, maybe you're all fantastic at this. But I think that is a difficulty for us. And I was sitting in this church about 2 or 3 months ago, and it's something that happens much more rarely than it used to. But we had a baptism, and there were 30 or 40 in the baptism party. And I was watching, as you do, how they were behaving. And of course, it's a situation where the baptism party contained some church people. That's why they were there, because they were Christians, and they were there, obviously members of the family who were completely oblivious to anything, had never been in church before perhaps, and they found it quite difficult. And what I realised was, there are people being born today, maybe people in that party, who will never be in a church throughout their life. So they will never, not even when they're in their coffin, they may never be in a church again. And so we're in a generation where people don't naturally anymore come to church. And here's the challenge for us. They may never hear the truth unless we do something else. And I said to PCC, what's your reaction to this? What do you think about that? And I think it has huge implications for us. Because the blindingly obvious thing is that people aren't coming to church. Those who are not members of the church are not coming. There's no reason to come. They don't have to come for baptism, they don't have to get married here, and they don't have to die here either. And so it has changed. And it's almost as if the church is a sort of ghetto where only Christians turn up. So they're not coming to us. Maybe we have to go and talk to them. I asked myself this question. What if PCC decided that what we were going to do was in 5 years, we were going to set ourselves a target that we would have 100 new Christians in membership here. In our 2 buildings, we'd have 100 new Christians. So just put that out there. And I asked the question, how would we actually do that? How would you go about it? And I said, one of the things that we can do is simply look at the people we come into contact with. Yes. What we would do is we would find somebody that we know, we would start praying for them specifically as an object of our Christian life, to pray for them and to start talking to them about what Christianity means and about what they need to do and to get them involved with other Christians. And when you've done one, maybe you do 2. And we start being focused about the fact that we need to be out there with people. Now, I'm not saying that's what we have to do. I simply asked that question and put it out there for PCC. And okay, there. Now, this is something that I wanted to say. Nick's alluded to this. We're going to have to change. And I put change in big letters because I think we'll have to change in a big way. I don't think we can change in a small way. I think we've got to change in a big way. And 2 elements of change. One is personal stuff. Okay, so we're going to have to change as Christians. I think that's really important. Second thing is we'll have to change as an organisation. So what we do as the church, as opposed to what we do individually. But the change is for both us individually and for us as a body of Christians together. Okay. You see this slide up here? This is something that Nick wrote recently. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And I told him so, and I think it is absolutely brilliant, which is why I'm quoting it here. And I'm going to read it out to you. However good our work on vision is, even though our ideas are bringing significant and valuable changes, they work within an existing model of church that seems less and less able to deliver real growth. At best, they can strengthen and deepen the church, but unless this health is harnessed towards some new activities and models of being, then we are just moving the furniture around and redecorating the house. Now, I wonder if you get that. I hope you do. I thought it was really profound, and I think also it sits comfortably with your coffee discussion with the other ministers. I think that's what they're actually saying. There. Now, I just want us to stop and pause for a second, because all I've said sounds really gloomy, okay? And, you're sitting there going, wow. And what I wanted to say was, many of us have been in this church for an awful long time, and, worked within churches for an awful long time. I want to say to people, we have done some amazing work in that time. God has been with us, we've been doing some incredible stuff, and people have given sacrificially to make this the church's work. So we should recognise that this is not a criticism of what we've done in the past, or anything like that. This is simply a recognition of where we are today. And I just want to put on record, on behalf of all of us, to say thank you to the people who worked faithfully and given their time and money and effort within our churches, because I think that's an important balance, that we recognise that people have been at work and that God has been at work with us. Churches, in my view, take about 25 years to die, and I'll explain why that is. And some of you may have come across the idea of boiling a frog. So do you like my little frog there? They did an experiment in the last century, whether this is apocryphal or true, but they put a frog in a saucepan, and they turned the heat up, and of course the frog jumped out. And what they found was that if you turn up the heat really, really slowly, the frog doesn't notice. And so it will eventually cook. Now, whether that's true or not, I can't say, but it is an example about churches. Because 25 years is so long, people don't notice what's actually happening, that the people involved are getting older, that a lot of the work is being done by older people, and it becomes more difficult to find volunteers. And churches, what they do is they draw in the horns as time goes by, when they find that they cannot do the outward ministry. So, we have to turn up sometimes and say, we haven't got enough people to do breakfast club, we haven't got enough people to do whatever else it is we're doing. And that is a church going down the path of dying, actually. Let's be real about that. And what goes with that is, as the process works its way, people almost become more unwilling to engage with the change that is necessary. And so you often find that within churches, people become critical of what goes on. So they want to change the way that the communion's done. So they don't like the fact that the chairs are turned around. They don't like this, that and the other, and they reflect it vocally. I mean, if we could talk to non-Christians as strongly as we talk to Christians in the church, we'd be okay. No, I don't want to criticise you, but it is difficult. It's really difficult for us to change, to do the necessary change. It's a hard thing to do. So, I'm not saying it's easy, it's absolutely not. And in a way, what I think we need is missionaries. And, you go back to the 19th century, and what missionaries did was they went off to a foreign country, and they were prepared to spend their life in a foreign country, and that was their life's work. And in a way, what we're looking for is for us to say about our church that this is our life's work. And I meet people who run businesses and various other things, and you meet people, their life's work is their business, or their life's work is their family, or their life's work is actually Manchester United Football Club, or whatever. And you can see what their gods are. And for us as Christians, our life's work is contained within building God's kingdom. And that's what we're for. Because the interesting thing is, of course, we come with nothing and we're going with nothing when we die. So none of what transpires in between will count for anything. And when we get and sit before the judgment throne of Christ, what did you do with your life that has stood the test of time? So when it all boils down, what have we done to build God's kingdom here? And in terms of missionary, what you talk about is commitment, sacrifice, and passion. And there may be people here who would say, no, I'm one of those. And there may well be people who say that, and that's great. And if you're one of those, and you think you're a missionary, that's brilliant, just don't listen to what I'm about to say. You don't need to. That's absolutely fine. How do we demonstrate our desire to see God's kingdom here? And it seems to me that, along with a lot of other churches, the path we're travelling now is to grow, or in the end, to actually fade away. And God hasn't changed. We know this, God has not changed. So if we're going to see change take place, in a way, some element of it is down to us. In the way we respond to God, perhaps, in the way we hear and decide to change. And I put up there, share the dream. And what I wanted to say was that it is within our power, I think, to become a church that is fast growing, for us to be attractive to Christians and attractive to the unchurched, for us to be prepared to do what we need to do in order to be that. And that's the change that we're talking about. And we could be in a situation where we have 2 or 3 services a Sunday because there are so many people coming. We have 100 or 200 young people going through our groups. There is no reason why we cannot dream and commit ourselves to doing what is necessary for God to achieve what He wants here. And that's my dream, actually. It would be really amazing if today, from now on, we set ourselves on the path to change and to do whatever we can to see God bless this church. Because I think, I would like to see this country remain Christian. I would like us to have influence on laws, on ethics. I would like us to be at the seat of government to make sure that God's voice is heard. And it starts here. I can't make St. John's do anything. I can't make anybody else do anything. It's us. It starts somewhere. A process of this church growing, or other churches growing. And maybe even we become an example to other churches. And what we're going to do now is, I've broadly said what it is I wanted to say. Now, there was something else that I was going to do, which I put to Nick, and he said to me, don't do it. And I think it was felt that probably if I did what I was going to do, I would push you too far. Okay? I mention this not because it's a problem, but simply to reinforce the idea that there's change coming. And we want things to change, and I am an enthusiastic advocate for change, and maybe I wanted to go a little too far, and I respect that, but what was being said here was you're going too far. So I was trying to encourage you even further. And so you should understand that there's a lot more coming down the track that will make us the people that we need to be. So, what is an appropriate response to this? Well, that's for you. Thank you very much for listening to me. May God bless what we're doing this morning.
You see why it's important that we all hear this and think about it and reflect upon it. And what I'm going to do now is give you, there's going to be a lot of conversations that will take place from this day and in PCC and outside. But I'd like to give you just 5 minutes, no more than 5 minutes, just to buzz with the people around you about what you've heard, what it's doing to you, what's first of all coming to the surface of your mind. It's the beginning of a conversation. I'm not expecting you to report back. It's just that I know if I've sat down and listened to something like that for about half an hour, I want to start talking to people around me and saying, what have you heard? Have this excites me, this bothers me, this troubles me. Have 5 minutes buzzing to the people around you and have that kind of conversation, and then I want to say a few things to kind of close us down and move us on. So talk, you're allowed to.
Chris, good morning, it's nice to see you. How are you? Good? Brilliant.
Okay, well I hope you're all going to stay for barbecues and things later and you can continue your conversations. I did commit that we're finished in time to have food, so I want to say some thoughts now, share them with you, and then hope those conversations that have obviously begun will carry on afterwards. It's interesting, Dee just came and spoke to me in a prayer meeting the prayer meeting she went to on Thursday, I think it was. The phrase came up from Esther, for such a time as this. And that sense that she brought today was that actually that's very much, if you know that, for Esther, for such a time as this, to stand up and be counted may well be a word for us and for this church. At this point, I think that could well be a prophetic word that we need to receive and respond to. Just so, PCC responded by going wow and thinking about things and drawing up various thoughts and thinking about how we might use our buildings and imagining what they might look like in the future. I was interested, I was reading a book yesterday by a guy called Phil Potter about how you bring in change. And he quotes from James Hudson Taylor saying there are 3 phases in the work of God. Impossible, difficult, done. Impossible, difficult, done. If you know about Hudson Taylor going off to China and all the rest of it, you know how impossible it looked, but what has been done. And he's kind of moved that on and said, actually, Phil Potter said, actually, I think it's about having impossible dreams that evolve into difficult visions and then become achievable goals. Today, I think we're at the impossible dream moment. So if it feels impossible, that's okay. It's okay with us, it's okay with God. That's the way it works. Impossible dreams that lead on to difficult visions and then achievable goals. That's the journey that this church is on now. And one of the things that came into and out of that PCC day was some pieces written down, imagining the future. And you know, it says, Joel said that when the Spirit comes, young men will dream dreams, your old men will... Dreams and visions are very strongly there. And so it's good to imagine stuff. And what I've given, I've got 50 of these, if we need more then we'll get more, but share them if you can. And what I've given you now is something that Jo wrote, and she was imagining what the church would look like. Something I wrote back in 2008 that I felt still has traction. And something that Richard wrote when he was thinking about Knaphill Church. And all 3 are just encouraging us to imagine the church that could grow by 100 in 5 years. To imagine what that might look like, what that might mean for how we live, what that might mean for our buildings. And that's really quite important. I think we're seeking a new covenant with our community. The covenant in the past used to be, we'll do your baptisms, we'll do your weddings, we'll visit you when you're sick, and then you come to our church and it's all going to be fine. No, they're not anymore. That's not the covenant. We need to renew our covenant with the community. We need to... I was watching a thing, I hope you can follow this one. There's been a programme a few weeks ago, Dan Snow, talking about locomotion and steam engines. Sorry, is my engineering side coming out here? Okay, the thing about Stephenson's rocket that was a real change was they moved from having a single boiler with water around it to having lots of pipes
with water. So that actually, the surface area, if you go to your mathematics, the surface area to the actual volume goes up hugely. Because you have a greater surface area of contact. Because the greater surface area of contact, it meant that the heat could heat the water faster, it meant that change could come, and things could really move. And that was the issue. And I feel that as a church generally, here and elsewhere, we have to increase our surface area of contact with our community if we're going to have the opportunity to share Jesus across those interfaces. Some of that will be to do with the buildings that we have, so that people will want to come to them. They need changing. We need to be alert to what the world's doing. Even now, we used to think, oh, it's great having a church hall, people want to come to parties. Do you know they don't want have a church hall for a party anymore? They want to have a princess party. They want to have a Shrek party. There's a different kind of attitude out there. If we continue saying, would you like a church hall? They say, no, we want somebody to organise a party. That's different. We have to change how we do things. We were thinking as PCC, there are a lot of people self-employed in our community. They'll need a place to come to meet with people. Maybe we need that. Maybe we need to have places where we can have reconciliation between families. Often you have social services saying, we need a good, secure place to meet so that we can do this kind of work. Where can they meet? We don't have that kind of place. We may need to change the buildings we have so they're less convenient for us, but more convenient, more interface with our community, and how we create greater relationship with our community away from our buildings, in our lives, in the way we work. I know one of the visions that Claire Lee shared is a sense of lights going on all over our community. And then we've talked about how we might be able to bless the community, the shops, the businesses in the middle of town. That's going out and doing something that's very different. It's creating a whole new area of contact, surface area of contact. And we need to think about how that works. 3 words that I felt coming to me, and I'll leave them with you to think about, are militant, relevant, and fragrant. It's an old word, militant, but actually it's there in the Book of Common Prayer. The church, militant here in earth. That means we are militant. That means we're active. That means we're not prepared to sit on our backsides. We have a gospel to proclaim and we want to do something. We are prepared to change if that's all it takes to do it. To be all things to all men in the right sense, as Paul would say, means actually being prepared to change and be militant. We need to be relevant. We need to be doing things that connect with where people are, not with where they're not. We can't keep saying to people, do come over here, it's a nice place. This is the question you're like to be asking, and this is the answer I'd like to give you. We have to go to where they are and say, what is the question you are asking? How can I answer that question? How can I meet that need? We have to be relevant. And I believe we have to be fragrant. I believe when people look at us as a community, they need to say, there is a bunch of people who have something different about them. The love, the mercy, go back to that New Testament church model we often think about. The love, the forgiveness, the life they live is fragrant. I go past that church and I smell the love, and it makes it, I want to know more about that. So there's 3 words for you to play with and think about. Militant, relevant, and fragrant. And yeah, I've said already that I think one of the issues for me moving on is because whoever comes next is going to be really important in helping you to continue that journey and to move forward in radically changing the way in which this church is going to be. I wanted to share with you a passage from Acts 4. It's one of my favourite passages, so it gives me a chance to do that. Acts chapter 4. Peter and John had been arrested. They had been held up before the Sanhedrin. They had been really bold in saying things. Peter had said, the salvation is found in no one else than in Jesus Christ. And the Sanhedrin had gone away to think about this, and they come back and they said to Peter and to John, we're going to release you, but don't talk about Jesus, please. Just stop talking about Jesus. Then everything will be fine. If you stop talking about Jesus, everything will be fine. And that's what the world around us, they want us to die. They want us to go into our corner, to go and talk about Jesus in our corner, and quietly die. That would be really convenient, really nice, really wouldn't get in the way of everything else everybody else wants to do. We've even got a little bit of that on some of the Open the Book at the moment. Could you talk a little bit less about Jesus? And these people came away from that experience And they went back into the church, Peter and John. And this is what happened. On their release, Peter and John went back to their own people and reported all that the chief priests and the elders had said to them. When they heard this, they raised their voices together in prayer to God. Sovereign Lord, they said, you made the heaven and the earth and the sea and everything in them. You spoke by the Holy Spirit through the mouth of your servant, our father David. Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth take their stand and the rulers stand together against the Lord and against his anointed one. Indeed, Herod and Pontius Pilate met together with the Gentiles and the people of Israel in this city to conspire against your holy servant Jesus, whom you anointed. They did what your power and will had decided beforehand should happen. Now, Lord, consider their threats and enable your servants to speak your word with great boldness. Stretch out your hand to heal and perform miraculous signs and wonders in the name of your holy servant Jesus. We're not going to stop talking about it. After they prayed, the place where they were meeting was shaken, and they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and spoke the word of God boldly. All the believers were one in heart and mind. No one claimed that any of his possessions were their own, but they shared everything they had, and with great power the apostles continued to testify to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and much grace was upon them all. They're not going to be shaped by what the culture around them wants to happen. They're still going to be shaped by what the gospel says. That's the first thing we need to think about as we move forward in this. The challenge is to remain fundamentally true to Jesus and confident in the gospel. The gospel hasn't changed. How we share it, how we express it, how we convey it, that's different in every generation, and it's different for us to do it again now. The call is not to shrink back, but in some way to push forward, and the power of the Spirit is crucial in enabling us to do that. We need to be prayerful. What was the first thing they did? They just came before God, rather like we were thinking about Hezekiah a few weeks ago. They laid it down before God and said, this is what the world wants. What are we going to do, Lord? What are you going to do, Lord? They responded that way. And there was unity and there was community that expressed that fragrance I was talking about just now. It's a church not shaped by the culture around, but boldly and attractively shaped by Jesus, militant, relevant, fragrant. I love that passage. It's as they pray that the Lord shakes them afresh by the power of the Holy Spirit. It is as they pray, honestly, frankly, before God and before the world, that change comes upon them and they feel empowered to be more and more the people they're meant to be. That is where what we've just been seeing takes us into change that is confident in the gospel, confident in the power of the Spirit, and ready to go to the uncomfortable places which will allow that to be expressed. Somebody suggested that we should look afresh at this. We talked about it in the morning service just now, but that display there, which Tracy put together, is around that patchwork. Patchwork is made up of squares that were made during the church weekend. And I know they're not perfect. I'm partly responsible for one of them. My knitting is famed for all the wrong reasons. You should ask the Teddy I knitted a scarf for many, many years ago. But with that goes these words, tapestry of love. And it's something about who we are and what God can do amongst us. A patchwork blanket, vibrant and multicoloured. Mismatched squares joined together by a master craftsman. No two quite the same. Some have stitches missing, some have too many. All are made with love and joy, a sense of shared community. All the broken pieces of our lives, excesses and imperfections, knitted together to form a vibrant tapestry of love. A community of precious people, each one unique, joined together by his perfect grace. Too fragile to stand alone, but patched together by the Maker's hand. We are strong enough to wrap our world in love. I want us to close in prayer. In fact, what I'm going to do, I was going to use an adaptation of the prayer that they used, but as I woke this morning, I was reminded of a song from the 80s. I'm so sorry. But anyway, a song from the 80s that often sticks in my mind, which is based exactly upon that prayer that was then. And you won't be, I'm not expecting you to sing it, and I'm not going to sing it to you. It's too much good news. But I just thought we could say these words together as bringing that prayer that the believers used as they responded to this world that wanted them to be crushed into a corner and saying, no, we are going to do the opposite. And the power of God came upon them. I want us to use this as our prayer as we come to an end. And then I want us to pray. Please keep praying for the PCC and for those in leadership. We have a lot to do. With my going as well, that's going to be slightly complicated. But there's things we need to get started on and moving on. And you need to know this is the backdrop to the change that is coming. So please will you stand. And the song we're going to sing, or not sing, say, there's a chorus, and we'll do the chorus each time, just as if we're singing it. Okay? So this is based upon that prayer, but I think it's exactly where we are now. So we say together. Almighty sovereign Lord, Creator God, you made the heavens and the earth. You've spoken to the world, yourself the living word. You give us eyes to see your kingdom. So stretch out your hand, O God, in signs and wonders. We rest our faith on your almighty power. Stretch out your hand, O God, to heal and deliver. We declare your kingdom is here. Stir up your people like a mighty wind. Come shake us, wake us from our sleep. Give us compassion, Lord, love for your holy word. Give us the courage of your kingdom. So stretch out your hand, O God, in signs and wonders. We rest our faith on your almighty power. Stretch out your hand, O God, to heal. We declare your kingdom is here. Another should be another verse. No? Why do so many stand against you now? Why do so many stand against you now, bringing dishonour to your name? Consider how they mock, but we will never stop speaking with boldness of your kingdom. So stretch out your hand, O God, in signs and wonders. We rest our faith on your almighty power. Stretch out your hand, O God, to heal and deliver. We declare your kingdom is here. And the people said, Amen. Bless you. Continue to talk. Enjoy the barbecue. Thank you again to Stuart for bringing us what you did. Thank you for being here.